Hi, I'm Kevin,
And I'm Amanda.
and we are serving up.
All that jam. A lighthearted look at the weekend jam bands.
Where we break down the jam scene's biggest stories,
Talk new bands
upcoming tours.
and show reviews. A little laughing, some hot takes, and an always positive message for the community.
Week of July 31st, 2023.
Welcome back. I'm Kevin, and this is All That Jam, the week of July 31st, 2023. I'm here with Amanda, and we are staring down August, a.k.a. Summer's Last Stand. It's hot here in Baltimore, and I just keep thinking, Amanda, about August and inevitably became September and school beginning, and how August was like your time to embrace, I guess, the last gasp of summer. So, how was your week?
Kevin, first of all, I love that. That's very poetic, which, I know is a part of your DNA. Yeah, everything is good. Got to see some great music this past weekend locally at Breckenridge Brewery here in Colorado. Buffalo Commons, local jamgrass band. They're phenomenal. Played a free show, two sets, really good. So that was my music for the week. What did you get into?
Breckenridge has a very good oatmeal stout, or they did 20 years ago when I lived there. Um, so check it out. I went and saw Fish at the Man, so I got to see the Crazy Carini. Fish has decided to play at another level. And as with the Man, and then these the first three shows of MSG, I don't know quite what to say. About the shows themselves, they were really fantastic. Online, you're getting everything. One night was better than the other. For me, I was thinking a lot there. So let me ask you this. When you're there in the moment, something like they played Backward Down the Number Line the first night for CK5, and it was great. I was dancing around, I was smiling, it was fantastic. I guarantee you, if I was sitting on the couch, I would have been writing evil little notes about it.
Oh, it's such a different experience, isn't it? I mean, there's no way that I could get as emotionally invested watching a stream than being there. And I accept that. Yeah, totally different experience, right?
It is. It's amazing to me, and it totally shades my perception. I got a lot of flack for the first night of MSG on our recap show that I wasn't that high on the show, but I think it was still me recovering from being there. There was almost the disconnect that we talk about a lot of times with musicians. About when they walk off the stage compared to a week later listening to a recording or something.
Yeah, and you know what? That's interesting too, because this has come up a couple times. I love listening to full, complete albums, especially concept albums. And I do get emotionally invested in something like that. But for me, listening to a live show, it's just different, and so I can appreciate what you're saying, and I wonder for other people if that's the same, or if they feel like they could get to that place watching a stream. I feel like I know some people who do, or who would say that.
Yes, I mean some people were tweeted. Somebody tweeted last night. I don't know off the top of my head about 2001 and Couch Tour, and being as loud as the crowd was in their house last night. So yeah, I mean for me it's more clinical. I'm watching through a screen. There's a boundary between me and the music, I
Hmm.
guess.
Well, and I'm not officially ADD or ADHD, but I have a lot of tendencies in that direction. And if I'm watching a live stream, whether it's at my house, a bar, a friend's house, there's just so many distractions also. And when I go to a show, Kevin, I don't know if I've ever even mentioned this, my eyes are closed most of the time when I'm listening to music. It's the only way that I can really ensure that I'm getting everything. So it's hard to do that when you're watching it somewhere else, you know?
Uh, yeah, part of it for me is the complete overload with the loud music and the people and everything going on that I find a calm in. almost like the eye of a hurricane or something.
I love it.
It's a very calming thing. So, but we uh we digress there. I hear that you have three news stories for us this week. Are we going to check them out?
Let's check those out, Kev.
The top three stories of the week.
All right. Yeah, so two of the three stories this week, just the way that it worked out, are kind of centered around some of these legal battles, lawsuits. One of them, which I'm going to start with, I had not heard of, although it's a case that's been in the courts for almost 10 years. Now, Pandora. I don't remember the last time I listened to Pandora, but they still have a pretty decent market share for that streaming service. And they just won a lawsuit over the use of quote unquote old music. Now, that word might not appeal to someone, when they hear the details, but basically, this particular lawsuit was over the use of copyright. Let me start that again. So, this lawsuit was a battle over the use and copyright of music that predates 1972. That's when modern copyright laws were, I guess, revised or written. And it's one piece of a much bigger lawsuit that started 9 years ago. And basically, it was the founding members of the Turtles. Remember them, Kevin?
I do. I love the Turtles.
Yeah, so they called for a series of lawsuits based on the idea that digital music services should pay royalties for songs that were written before 1972. But there is no national copyright protection against music services only paying based on these like state level regulations, and it gets super complicated, of course. The case went back and forth. The Turtles won, then it got kicked to appeals. But basically, this is going to set a precedent for future legal battles in the same vein, and it's going to change the views on copyright law. Pandora will not need to pay back what the Turtles believe that they are owed. So
Now,
maybe,
did the
go ahead.
Turtles get paid anything at all, or if a song was written in 1971, anybody can just use it for anything?
Yeah, apparently, this Music Modernization Act kind of removes the ambiguity. Sorry, this there's something called the Music Modernization Act, and it removes that ambiguity. I don't think they can get paid when it's a digital music service, so that doesn't include commercials, movies, anywhere else where that music might be aired. It's very specific to services like Pandora.
So that the law would need to say that Pandora is like a radio station or a bar playing a song. And what the court is contending, and I guess Spotify is contending, is they're different.
Apparently, and I think that even with the proliferation of all these services, there's still, I think, so much that hasn't been codified into law yet. So you have these battles that go on and on forever, seemingly. And then these different rulings, like this one here. But I guess we'll have to see, over time if that becomes the norm. I mean, people don't have to pay for Pandora, right? They have that freemium prescription, they have that freemium subscription. Um, so I don't know. Maybe you could argue that it's similar to a radio station or an internet-based streaming service.
Hmm. Yeah, they're making money off of it. All right, we'll have to. I'm sure that this is going to get reappealed. Maybe it ends up in the Supreme Court, which
Yeah,
wouldn't be good for the Turtles, probably. But
yeah. At this point, I don't know. They might just throw in the towel on that one. So we'll see. The next is, I guess, similar in the sense that it's kind of calling out, these really big companies. And Kev, you had shared this one with me. We have talked about Ticketmaster a number of times, but to me, this is not only such a fascinating situation between Ticketmaster and lawmakers now, but it's so relevant for all of us. So, Kevin, this fall, the Justice Department could file an antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation and Ticketmaster. This is coming from, apparently some really good sources. Could happen as soon as this fall, that claims that they're abusing their power over the live music industry. We know all this. However, a case like that would really add to the other legal battles that are in play. And if it's successful, it could break up, that massive company. So this is definitely something that now seems to be coming on the heels of some of the other, issues that we have been talking about recently.
Right. And I tell you what, there's one truth in all of this for me, that Republicans and Democrats have kids who go to concerts, and those kids are bitching about fees and bitching about how hard it is to get tickets. And with no political leanings, the parent in you is going to make you want to go after Ticketmaster.
Yeah, I
Hopefully.
mean, it's to some degree, it's for optics purposes, it is a very easy target, because it's obvious, right, that there's no real competition there, and so no motivation to offer true, quality service. I will say that the Taylor Swift concert ticket snafu is not related to the Department of Justice investigation. Um, we know Senate testimony earlier this year that I think we talked about. The president of Live Nation had pinned that Taylor Swift situation on a cyber attack, but okay, come on. So, they've got a lot of different things that they're dealing with over there at Ticketmaster, and lots of money to try to fight them. So we'll see what happens.
They got splaining to do.
They are a little bit. Yeah, there's also questions about, contracts for these different tours and how
Right.
Ticketmaster handles that. It's layered, and
Right,
so
and
it's
they're in
something.
bed with the scalpers. I mean, they own StubHub. Come on.
Yep, absolutely. And I'm sorry, but SeatGeek, AEG, these are not going to be the companies that are going to make a huge difference. They're little by little chipping away at things, but it's going to take something of this level, something like a Justice Department investigation, to probably really do anything.
They need to
Um,
have what was done to AT&T. They need to be broken up. Live Nation is a separate entity from Ticketmaster, and Ticketmaster has to. AT&T, I think, had to share their lines. Right? That's why Sprint began, and MCI and all those companies popped up. Whatever they need to do, whatever with Ticketmaster, that they no longer have that grip, and these other companies will have a fair chance. If they fail, they fail. That's American capitalism. But at least let's have, there used to be Ticketron, and other ones. I guess, what's the one, Axis? There is that Axis company out in California, right? Or somewhere.
there is, and that one comes up quite a bit. For me at least, maybe the kinds of concerts that I'm going to. But still, in terms of market share, I just think it's a real uphill battle. One thing I did want to also just mention, we've been talking about these legal situations, but really we have to remember that Live Nation has been under some sort of federal oversight since it merged with Ticketmaster, and that was in 2010. Um, but that settlement expired a couple years ago. Basically, the companies had agreed to sell off some assets, license some software, not force venues to use Ticketmaster, but that's done. So if something's going to happen, this would really be an opportune time. So that rages on as all of us are now trying to plot our fall concert going experiences. And speaking of concert going experiences, wanted to just also mention that the Motet, one of my all-time just favorite bands, love them. They have named a new lead singer, and they've also, thrown out some details for their fall tour dates. The new singer is Sarah Clark, and this is not someone that I was really familiar with, even as someone like me who kind of, I pride myself on, really trying to know who's out there. She's from Portland, Oregon, and she's worked with a number of bands in that area, I think. Dirty Revival, Con Brio, which I had heard of. And so she is going to bring a new sound. And Kevin, I mention this because for anyone that's followed the Motet's, trajectory over the years, they have been fully instrumental at times early on. They had Lyle Davinsky for, a number of years as the front man on vocals. And then they've kind of been bringing in people here and there the last few years once Lyle left. So now we'll see what happens with Sarah Clark as a, more permanent addition.
There you go. Fantastic. Can't wait to hear what they're doing. It's always interesting when I wonder, like, some of the older songs. Is she going to be singing them, there's always the question for me of, you hear more often women singing men's songs that are from a male perspective. You never hear men singing songs from a woman's perspective necessarily.
That is interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess, a real powerful voice on male, female, whichever side of that coin can really handle anything. But yeah, it may not go as easily, in that other direction. Well, I know for me personally that the motet and Halloween, synonymous with fun, they tend to do really incredible full, album covers, and so they'll be back at it in Fort Collins and Boulder for Halloween, along with a ton of other tour dates. So hopefully,
And
some people,
hopefully someone will be on
yeah,
from
yeah,
the motet. We're going to be reaching out to them as soon as we hang up today.
that's right. I may have already put a couple feelers out there, but they're a great band. So excited to see what happens.
And they got something to talk about. Maybe we can get Sarah on, find out her story. This week we got Yam Yam for the interview. They're out of Pennsylvania, band with a saxophone, which seems to have become a thing. Kendall Street Company, a couple other bands I've seen recently have been incorporating the saxophone into it. This first part of the interview, we're going to get into what we mentioned earlier about the disconnect between what happened on stage and listening to it later. And then there's a little bit about quarantine. And at the end, they got to play with Andy Frasco, and they got into that a little bit with it. So let's check out this first piece, and we'll see you on the other side. Do you find a disconnect when you listen back to a show from what you think when you walk off stage?
So,
That's an interesting question.
it is a good question.
Go ahead.
I might not be the best one to ask because I tend to not listen to stuff after I do it like for a really long time. I don't like it's hard for me to. I don't know why. I just don't like to listen to what I've just done and recording. And when recording, you have to because you got to do overdubs. But my instinct is to just because it's too close where I can hear every little thing that I hear the details too much. Where if I hear it fresh without remembering the things I was disappointed about, but it is nice with Yam Yam. The mixes we've been getting with Marshall have been so nice that it is actually kind of a pleasure to listen to even right after now. So I'm not as I have a weird thing about that.
What are you recording on?
With the live,
Yeah.
lots of times our sound guy, we have a front of house guy, Marshall, who plugs into the board and then he'll mix it for us. And he's recording our new album right now too. We're in the middle of doing overdubs for the.
To your question though, because
yeah, he's the better one to ask that one.
Can you just say the question again once for a second for me?
Do you find a disconnect when you listen back to a show from when you walk off stage?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. So I'm kind of the opposite in what Jason was saying, in that I want to hear what I did right after I did it. So I get off the stage and I have a preconceived notion about how I perform that night, but I need to hear I need a tidbit. I need something to show me what my perception was right or wrong. Because I always rock the party. I'd love to yell and scream and get people dancing and stuff. But my playing, I'm way more I get critical. I get angry. And I mean, I'm I think a little too compulsive about music. I need it to be the way I want it to be, and when it's not, I'm mad.
Right. There's that famous story of Garcia pushing Phil Lesh down the steps after a show, and they used those tapes for Live Dead.
Wait, why did he do that?
They got in a fight. Garcia thought it was complete shit, and him and Phil got in a shouting match, and he pushed him down the steps.
That seems out of character. I don't know that much about
that does seem out of character. That's
seems
why
like a nice
And then they used those tapes where some of the tapes that they used for mixing Live Dead. They cut some of those performances out. The Dark Star, I think. So they nailed it. And they know that's what made me think of it, was reading that, is how that probably happens a lot. you go back and you're like, well, okay, I was way hard on myself. It seems a
Yeah.
lot of people are hard on themselves.
Yeah, exactly. A little too hard on ourselves. Yeah, we gotta chill.
I've had some pleasant surprises where shows I thought were, like Summer Camp was a perfect example. I was sick the whole time, but then I listened back to the video and I'm like, I mean, I guess I held it together.
Yeah,
It's like, you know, like it sounds all right. It helps.
Some weird fever dream you're playing.
What's that?
You're in some weird fever dream that you're
dude,
playing.
that was like, remember after every little part I played, I was like, okay, now I gotta take like my breath, get my breath back. I don't know what the heck it was. It was either food poisoning or a bug or something, but I was like, I'm not gonna be playing well today.
Right, Kev. You know, one of the, I think, perennial topics for us that I never really get tired of hearing about is that quarantine experience for artists. And Yam Yam really shared a lot about what that time is like for them. So we're going to get back to that interview in just a second. But before we do that, just a little bit of housekeeping like we usually do. Just a reminder for everybody to check us out online on social media at All That Jam Pod. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're also at allthatjampod.com. And then, of course, anywhere that you're getting podcasts, please make sure to check out all of the content. I know, Kev, you're going to be sharing in a minute what we have coming up this week. But before that, let's get back into the interview with Yam Yam.
You guys put out what your last album was 2020 that came out, your last studio effort?
Damn, was it that long ago?
Yeah, I guess around then. I'm
terrible. I guess where I'm going to go with this is quarantine. You know, you guys were a working band. You're doing okay. Boom. It was this week or next week that it happened 3 years ago. All of a sudden, you can't go out. How did that affect the band and the operations and what you did together as the sound of it?
I mean, it was frustrating. We had all these cool festivals lined up like Peach and Dome Fest and like Summer Camp, and then we had to postpone it. But we did a lot of live streaming type stuff to try to, you know, and we kept practicing, you know.
I mean, I got
after
a
we got our vaccination, he got a real job.
I had to get a real job. I hated that.
Do you think it helped yourselves as a band to have the chance to be away from the road and only be able to rehearse or do live streams?
I mean,
helped. I don't know if I would say it helped.
Everything can have a blessing in disguise, you know, but like, yeah, it definitely like seemed like a wrench in the whole thing. But like, we talked to like our managers and like the people we were talking to, like they said, you know, just look at this. Like once, if you keep going strong and like keep everything together, you can come out of this really strong, you know, because people are going to be aching to hear music, you know.
Yep.
And just keep doing your thing, and we did, and like, like when we played a Peach, and like we got a good reaction. We got like, you know, and it's nice to like, you know, play shows where people are like, you can tell they're really like thirsty to hear it again after like, being locked up. And
those Goose guys milked that quarantine.
Yeah, I think we could have more than we did. Honestly, we could have done more. Like, you know, once we all got vaccinated and everything, we were cool to like play together again. We could have done we had some quarantine shows we did before the whole, and where we like had tape between us, like we all stayed a certain amount of distance from each other just to like, you know, like be like, none of us are like, you know, we're taking it seriously, you know, we're like, we still want to play for everybody, but we're taking everything seriously. We're not like, you know, like, it was like, and it's like, I mean, I like it sometimes when you have to be creative to overcome, like, and I like the idea of using the internet more too, because like, you know, touring and playing bars all the time, it can get tiring, and it can get like, you're always dealing with like, you know, haggling for the money and this and that. Whereas on the internet, you can like, you have much more of the reins to like less middlemen in between you and that money that you're making. Like, you know, it's like I'm hoping we can take advantage of that more. We've done some live streams on Reddit that really popped off that we really got to get back on top of that again. We would just be at a practice and we'd like be like Coco, a drummer. He's really good on Reddit. He has a lot of the karma. I don't know how it works, but he's on there a lot, like, and has like a good. So he'll stream through his thing, and we got I don't know how many views. It was hundreds of thousands or something. Just like playing a couple songs, and we were on the front page one time of Reddit, and like, and it was like, and I remember he like was ecstatic. None of us know how Reddit works, but I remember we play, and then he picked up his phone. He's like, "Oh my god!" And we're like, "What?" And we're like, it was like, I guess that's good. How many like.
All right. Yeah, so quarantine is fascinating. I wonder as we get further and further away from it, how much it I can't say rose-colored glasses, but how much perspective will people will see that it was helpful in some way. It maybe there was a touch of a blessing in there somewhere.
Right. Well,
Ye-
adversity is always going to bring out some unknowns and also the best in what people have to give. So I think that that's definitely the case to some degree.
Yep, definitely. All right, so when on that, yeah, we can cut that out later. On that note, let me give you what's coming up this week. Tuesday, tomorrow, we have Manny Sanchez from Groove Session. They played Animals a couple times a year or two back, and we got into the place of having a message in your music, being socially conscious. So that's interesting. Wednesday, we got Tropidelic on their Everwild Fest, which is a Buckeye Lake, Legends Valley, I guess it's called now, this coming weekend. So check that out. Bones, Thugs, and Harmony will be there, which I found fascinating. Thursday, we got Squeaky Feet about their soundman, Ben Gartenstein, who they say has been a total game changer for their sound, for their whole operation. He now tours with them. They tour with their own board. So that's fascinating. Friday, something pretty big, I guess. Jerry Joseph, about how he first started working with Widespread, but also this new single song, King Baby, that he wrote with John Bell and Jerry got together. He gave us the story of it. Apparently, the song is getting a lot of positive reaction from the Widespread community. So we'll be checking that out. Saturday, DJ Williams. We got into being part of the jam band community and the Denver scene, which we keep coming back to. It has become one of the places in this country when you say jam band music, people will immediately think of. And then Sunday, we got Papa Molly on his first band, the Killer Bees, which was a reggae band. And he gets into some of his early life. He says he got his first guitar when he was 5, which is fascinating to me. But this last clip, let's get into this with Yam Yam, talking about playing with Andy Frasco, how they travel around a little bit, and we'll see you on the other side.
Like,
The question becomes, which I find for myself doing a podcast, I have a YouTube channel too, is how do you monetize something like these streams? Will 100,000 people watch if it isn't free? Is the question, kind of thing.
we did a thing at a studio, like a quarantine jam, where people were able to donate tips,
Right.
and like we made like a couple $1,000s in tips
Nice.
one time. It helped that we had people like streaming it on their different Facebook pages, like EXO, like put it through
Right.
their site, and like so people were like easier able to see it and like access it and know that it's even happening. And then like when people see it, they'll put in these little tips, and like we'll make some money. And like I don't know if you can
No
really
overhead.
get it, but we should probably do a Patreon page. That's another
Right.
way for artists to make money,
Yeah. And another thing I always mention to bands is sync licensing. You get one movie to take a song and
Oh
pay
yeah,
you $17,000 to throw it in the movie or something.
yeah, that would be great.
That's a
Like,
good afternoon.
I mean, it's always been my dream to do movie music. Just like I'd like for me personally, like what I studied most in music was composition. That's like my thing. So I love writing and I love theory and I love putting music to videos. And I've done it for work here and there, little bits, but never really like took off with it. And that's what I'm trying to set up here with this projector. I want to get my Logic synced up to like a video that I can project on the wall so I can try video editing with music. And
Right.
but like to have like the music that we do with Yam Yam put in a movie or even a commercial or anything, that would be really cool. Be a good way to get passive income too,
Yeah.
But like I don't know.
Definitely. It's all about how many, I guess, irons you can have in the fire there. Um,
Listening, it's called. I got.
let me ask you about. Did you hear that Wayne Shorter passed away today?
Yeah, I just put.
It's a shame.
It's,
Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
you're a sax guy. What are your thoughts?
it sucks. Like I love Wayne
He was
Shorter.
89. He almost made it to
He
90.
did. He lived a real good life,
Yeah,
and
he made it to
they say he died very peacefully, and and it wasn't like a Lee Morgan guy that his wife like shot him in the back of the head while he was playing on stage or something. Nothing like that. But yeah, it's still sad. He was one of my biggest inspirations. And his tunes, I know a bunch of his tunes, and I love covering his music, and as a saxophone player, I do a lot. I come a lot from the jazz world more than the jam scene, honestly. So I'm getting myself educated on the jam scene a little bit more, with Pigeons and Goose, bands I'm less familiar with. And now I'm meeting them, and they're really nice. They're really cool, nice guys, and great musicians, and fun to
Gator, he's a great guy. I've talked to Gator.
Yeah.
Before.
It was really fun playing with Andy Frasco. Those guys were really. They're really nice. They're really, really nice people. Really fun.
Yeah, they're super
And
cool.
fun to jam with. Every time we did a show, we'd have this little super jam at the end. We'd all swap instruments and run around like idiots, and it was so much fun. And it helps us to loosen up a little too, because we tend to be very sometimes with our live show we get a little not rigid, but just trying to be I don't know, maybe rigid.
I think we do.
Yeah,
it's our problem in the studio too. We try to make records that sound live and natural, but sometimes it comes off as very technical. And those jazz cats like Wayne Shorter and stuff, John Coltrane, Miles Davis. The essence of creating a record sometimes I think is really tough in the modern age, because you're stuck with this technicality. You want it to be perfect. You want all your parts to be right. And sometimes we need to, sometimes the wrong parts of the record are the best part of the record. You never what you're saying, that story, Phil Lesson, that perception is everything, right? And
I mean,
it's hard to perceive yourself sometimes. You get stuck or whatever. I
was personally really glad we ended up jamming with Andy Frasco, because it for me that was nice. It because I like I said, I do jazz, so jazz players, when you do jazz, you don't even know what band you're going to be playing in half the gigs. It could be anybody. It's just everybody's just floating around. You don't know what songs you're going to be what do you want to call this one? Or everybody has the songs that in their back pocket, and you just really go at the. And I'm comfortable with that, and I love it, honestly. And it was cool when we jammed with other bands, especially Andy, where it was just what are we gonna do tonight? Oh, let's figure it out. We'll figure it out on stage, and
sometimes you need that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's I'm yeah.
So, sometimes you need technicalities.
Without a net.
Something very designed, and sometimes you need nothing.
All right, Kevin, as always, a great interview there, and really appreciate Yam Yam coming on. We just always end up getting so much great, information, and just the stories that they have to tell is fantastic. I do have a couple of additional reactions around, the farewell of Dead and Company. Wanted to share some of those. I'm still happy to take them, and have really enjoyed seeing what people had to say. So, Kevin, let me just share a couple of these now. Remember, I was curious to know some basics, right? What were people's favorite moments from this tour? Any kind of thoughts for the future of what things are going to look like? And then, what's so important about this community? And I want to start there with this quote: friendships that are close to 50 years old. We share the same desire to seek the music behind the lyrics, the fills, riffs, and explorations that made the band so special. The inside jokes, the love we have for each other, the comfort. Yes, we were part of the community, but as decades went by, we were a subset that really became all about the music, not just the party. We chased songs together, shared stories of our families, got together when possible. We had the music, we always will. In the end, there's just a song. Whoa, Kevin, that one got me. That's pretty amazing. And I think we can all kind of relate to that, right? If you're a music fan and you've been seeing any kind of band for a number of years, that really rings true to me. All right. So a couple others I'll just share. Someone's favorite moments, hanging with His daughter's in Chicago, friends they've been seeing shows with for over 40 years. It just doesn't get much better. Musically, the show's made me happy, but happier still with those around me. And then one more in terms of hopes for the community, just to be kind and musically, um, hoping that the members of Dead and Company find what moves them.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I was listening to a lot of the interviews coming out with different members of the band. You totally. It feels like every one of them are saying, "I don't know why we're stopping." It almost feels like that. But there's a lot that you have to take into consideration. With my mom's turning 80 this year. There's when you're 80 years old, even if you're in good health, there's concerns. You have to take care of stuff. Like Matt Bush was talking about Bobby not being able to do one more Saturday night, like sing after that, because he throws his voice out. So there become all these other considerations. How much can you have them do? 29 shows is a lot.
That is a lot, and I think you're right. Regardless of whether you're in the huge tour bus, in a van, it's a physical job. It's taxing in a lot of ways. As much as they love it, they've got to be on.
Hmm.
So I agree with you.
And Bobby likes riding the bus, from what I hear. He doesn't like to
Yeah,
fly; he'd rather ride on the bus.
yep.
There
I
we
mean,
go.
I'm sure that to some degree, for people that can be honest with themselves, they'd rather end things on the best of possible notes. And I
Yep.
respect that. I have to say, I do respect that tremendously, what Den and Company has done. And I know it couldn't have been easy to make
Yep.
that call.
Exactly. All right, before we get out of here, remember we're going to be taking a week off, 7:30 to 8:05 for Dick's and our 1 year anniversary. And if you're in Denver, find us. We'll be on the lot hanging out. I'm always on Twitter letting people know where I am, so I shouldn't be too hard to find. And with that, I'll leave you, as always, with stay beautiful, but don't stay underground too long. I'll see you next week, Amanda.
All right, Kevin.